Chapter 43. The hood over his head was daunting, terrifying. Murari Viradaraj had fought and struggled against its rough material and concealing purpose. If he was going to die, at least let him witness the event. Allow him to face the end of his life with dignity, not hiding behind a cloak of darkness. He wanted to see his murderers, stare them in the eye. He needed to describe their faces and their brutality to his gods as the last of his spirit left his body. And he wanted those gods to avenge him, to mark the men with a similar death. But no, with his face covered, he knew nothing of what was transpiring. The only details he could utter up to the gods were of the two captors he'd seen. He knew every detail of Shakhtar's face. The information was etched on his cerebrum. The man's voice echoed in his ears as he thought of the many conversations they'd had. The hooded prince also remembered the eyes and the voice of the other man who he had come into contact with. He prayed for justice, for spiritual retribution. If he had to die, Murari at least wanted them to pay for their crimes. He wanted his family to have some peace and the knowledge that those who had harmed him had also suffered violently as a result of their actions. But as he was shoved into a car and taken from the location that he had occupied for months, or could it have been a year, he had no way of knowing. He continued to fight anyway. He tried to use headbutts, leg kicks, and curses as his weapons, but those efforts only received harsh punches to the face and body. Murari was then struck in the back of his head with what felt like the tail end of a gun. His occipital bone seemed to collapse on impact, cracking open the back of his skull and creating a fractured explosion of thin lines that seemed to travel rapidly while webbing out in a countless directions as it altered the structural stability of the surrounding bones. Any thought of escape eluded him. All concerns for living another day or seeing the faces of his family were irrelevant. The one woman he truly loved was a distant memory. Murari felt something hot trail from the volcanic explosion of pain at the back of his head. He sagged against the soft cushions of the car seat and vaguely heard its engine as the car sped away from an unknown location. The crumbling sounds in his head would not stop. The screams inside of him would not leave their place of origin to enter into his throat. They were frozen in place. Murari was incapable of uttering any cries of torment as he closed his eyes and waited for death.